So when it comes to Pesach, we tend to focus on the themes of the first days of Pesach, the Seders, the theme of freedom, right? Going from slavery to freedom, from despair to celebration. And by the time we get to the end of Pesach, we were discussing this earlier, we're a little over matzah, and we feel like we need to move on to a different idea, different theme. And I want to make the argument that the last day of Pesach is a holiday of love. That's the theme. It's a holiday of love, right? Now we think about holidays of love within Judaism, right? The one we have is Tu B'Av. Tu B'Av is our holiday of love, but actually Pesach is, I'm going to argue, the last days of Pesach is where we focus on this idea of love. Now part of it comes from the Megillah that we're about to read, Shir HaShirim, but there's a reason that we read Shir HaShirim at the end of Pesach. Let me actually take a step back and say one of the things that frustrates me when speaking to people who are not Jewish very often, and they come and they say, you know, Judaism, the Old Testament, as they would say, is a testament of anger and wrath, and the New Testament is the testament of love. The reality is, the story of the Exodus, while it has moments of God's power, is actually a love story. It's actually a love story. It starts with the connection or the reconnection between God and the people of Israel when they were in Egypt. God came, so to speak, in a traditional, if we're really going to use these traditional love stories, you know, a shining knight on a white horse, took them out from slavery, brought them in this whirlwind courtship to the mountain where they got married. Think about it. It's a love story. It's a love story. And the way that we think about Pesach, right, we focus on actually the Egyptians. We focus on the slavery aspect of it in the first few days, and we don't actually take the time to say, well, what does this mean now that we're free? What does it mean now that we have this relationship with God that we didn't have in the same way for the 400 years before while we were slaves? Which brings us to Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs. It's one of the Megillot, one of the 5 Megillot that are read, and if you have not yet read the Song of Songs, it is, in fact, a love story. Quite a spicy one, if you really read it all the way through. There's a great MASH episode, actually, where I have to bring MASH in every once in a while. You know that by now. There's a great MASH episode where Father Mulcahy comes and sees a patient reading the Bible. And he comes over and he wants to talk to him about what he's reading. And the guy is reading, Song of Songs. And Father Mulcahy starts reading it and gives it back to him and says, in your condition, I would recommend something a little less inspirational. Right? It's a spicy love story. It's a spicy love story. And what the rabbis then have done is have used it as an allegory for the relationship between God and the Jewish people. This love story between God and the Jewish people. And so I want us to think a little bit today about what are the aspects of our tradition, not just in Pesach, but in general. What are the aspects of our tradition that focus us on love? Because I want to belie this understanding that, well, Judaism isn't about love. On the contrary, there's a lot in our tradition. So from your From your experience, what are the aspects of our tradition? It can be from our Bible, it can be from our liturgy. Where do we focus on love in Judaism?
Well, I think there are two very obvious ones. V'ahavta et Hashem Elokeinu from the Shema. You should love the Lord your
Mm-hmm.
God. Not the full note. And then I think the other one that just boom quickly pops up is V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha.
Great. Right? You shall love the Lord your God, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself.
So I think there's three relationships there. One is between the person and God. The other is between the person and your reacha, your friend,
Yep. Your neighbor, right?
Neighbor, it's hard to kind of hear. They're kamocha, like yourself.
Yeah.
So you've got
These three different things. We have to love God, we have to love our neighbor, we have to love ourselves. All sort of baked into one verse. Good. What else? Milt.
Sort of in the reflection of Shir Hashirim, I think of Kabbalat Shabbat, welcoming Shabbat bride.
Yeah.
It really invokes love.
Right. L'chadodi, that whole, right, Kabbalat Shabbat, L'chadodi invokes that sense of love, and absolutely. I mean, it takes us to that marriage, right? L'chadodi as a bride. Vard. Love strangers, right? Love the stranger. Love the orphan. Love the widow and the fatherless, right? That is definitely a part of it. Yeah. It's not just chesed. It's not just kindness, but ahavat chesed, right? Acts of loving kindness, right? We have that in there. Yes. Oh, I like that, right? A great opportunity, singing Eshed Chayo, to be able to show the love between partners. Okay? Michal. Yeah. Right? Ruth and Naomi, David and Jonathan, right? Showing love that's not a romantic love, but a love between two souls that is just as deep, even though it's not in that romantic sort of thing. Anything else? Yeah, Diana.
I think there's one time in Torah where is it Yitzchak and Rivka, where he says he loved her. There's one of the, or was it Yaakov and Rachel? There was one where it specifically points out Ahavah. The other,
Yeah.
That's the only one time. I'll look that up. The other is Ahavat Olam, loving the world. And then the third one I was thinking of was when Birkat HaKohanim, and at the end the Kohanim will go B'Ahavah.
Right.
And then so there's this love.
So the blessing of the people comes, for the Kohanim, comes from love, right? Be'ahava is part of it. Ahavat Olam, I'm going to actually reframe a little bit, because Ahavat Olam actually is referring to God's love for us, and it's a world of love, basically, that God is heaping upon us, right? That's there. So it's not love the world per se, it's the other way, but it's still the same idea that's there. Yeah, Marge. It can be ritual as well. Anyway.
I think the way we handle death is also very loving. The way the community comes together.
Yeah. The way that we deal with death, right, is very much done from a place of love and from a place of support. Absolutely. Both in terms of how we deal with the mate, how we deal with the body itself, right, with all of the rituals that we do through Tahara, the Chevra Kadisha, all of that is coming from that place, but also how we deal with the Avelim, how we deal with the mourners at that point in time. Deb?
So, with all the examples, it keeps bringing back to the word kavod, of honor. That we show our love through honor.
We show our love through honor. What's I like the connection, but I'm thinking about it. Is there a difference between love and honor? Can we show one without the other?
Well, yes, love is more deep, I would say, but the foundation is this notion of kavod, of lifting somebody up, or lifting the world up, or lifting God up, or lifting our neighbor up.
Yeah, I actually want to draw more of a distinction than a similarity between them. I think I think the Ten Commandments, we were just discussing this as you walked in, right? The Ten Commandments doesn't say love your parents. It says honor your parents. And so I think there is a difference. And how do we combine those two? Perhaps love starts with honor, right? Like honor is the first step, and then it goes to love. Okay, Michal?
Contrary, I guess, I kind of feel like love, like between parents and children, that is what develops honor later, because you have that sense of gratitude and attachment to your parent, and the parent to the child. So honor is more, it seems to me, as you grow, but the love is really final.
So honor, I think you're right, Michal. Honor comes naturally later as you develop that relationship. But to me, that's why the command is so important. Even if it hasn't developed, it still needs to be there. So there's two sides of it, right? Whether we have developed that relationship with our parent to honor them or not, we're still commanded to do so. Not love them, but honor them. Yeah.
I think love is a feeling and honor is a verb. Honor is to do. And you can do each, you can love without honoring it, and you can honor without loving. And when they come together, then that's really powerful.
I agree with you that honor is a verb. I'm getting stuck on the first part. I think love is a verb too.
Well, to act loving is one thing. To feel love is, I think, something different.
Correct. Well, one can feel honor also. But yeah, I like the distinction between thinking about it as a noun and as a verb and what that means for us. Let's kind of go into, I love that. I mean, by the way, next time somebody says that Judaism isn't about love, here we go. Right? I mean, just look at what we did here just in this conversation, and we can really dig in quite a bit more. I want to actually go into looking at the Torah portion that we're going to read today. So if you turn to 4:10, and I know we're going to do Shir HaShirim, and I'm speaking before Shir HaShirim, but I want to bring them together. So 4:10, we have the verse, chapter 15, verse 13, right? Nachita bechastecha am zuga'alta. Now, it's actually framed in the English, in your love, you lead the people you redeemed. And in your strength, you guide them to your holy abode, right? The word ahava isn't there, but this is picking up on a rabbinic interpretation of this, that it starts with love, and Rabbi Sachs connects the two, this and Shir HaShirim, through this verse. And he says Shir HaShirim is the voice of the soul in search of God, and God's voice in search of the soul. It is a text of pursuit. And at the Red Sea, we see the first glimpse of that divine pursuit. He's framing this not only as a love story, but as, almost a Romeo and Juliet story of, chasing after the other, of, should we, shouldn't we, is this the right thing, is this not the right thing, which actually many love stories are, by the way, right? Many of us who have found love, it's not so straightforward, it's not so easy, right? You see the person, it's not just love at first sight necessarily. It takes time, it grows, you have to test it. The same thing is true, Rabbi Sachs is saying here, it's a pursuit, it's a back and forth. And what happens in the poem that we're reading today of Shirat Hayam, and what happens in Shir HaShirim is a reflection of that. It's a description of that back and forth, that pursuit. It's not just taken for granted. And that's kind of where I wanted to end it with us today. so often we take for granted what the end of the story is going to be. Anybody who is in a relationship knows that the end is never for granted. The end is never written in stone. It takes work, it takes effort, it takes constant attention to that relationship. And I think if we can walk away with anything from this love story that we read in Shir HaShirim, and that we actually now are going to find the echoes in Song of the Sea, it reminds us that just like any loving relationship, it needs care and it needs effort. And as we leave all of this and we say, thank you to God for taking us out of slavery, thank you to God for giving us all these things, for the 10 plagues and the 10 commandments and all these sorts of things, as we leave Pesach, the question is, now what? Now what? And this is the reminder of saying, now the relationship's up to us. In these next 6 months, as we go through until we get to High Holidays and Sukkot, where we define the relationship a little bit differently, as we go into the summer, spring and summer, it's up to us to cultivate that relationship. It's up to us to deepen that relationship that we have with God and with our tradition. I think it's a wonderful message as we are finishing Pesach and as we then move into the summer and we get ourselves ready for the new year. Any comments before we actually read Shir HaShirim or a chapter of Shir HaShirim, and then we're going to get into our Torah reading? All right.